Good afternoon on what is a warm, bright and sunny day. It is Wednesday the 23rd of August. I've got a nice hot cup of tea. And a package to finish unboxing. So I have already pulled out of here the classic campaign, Walker in the Wastes from Pagan Publishing, published in 1992, 1994, something like that. So yeah, what I have got in here also is a much slimmer supplement, but also published by Pagan Publishing. This is Bumps of the Night, and I can't see the date, 2011. So one of the last few supplements to be published by Pagan Publishing. So, from the ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties and things that go bump in the night, good Lord, deliver us. Traditional Scottish prayer. Say your prayers, light your lamp, load your revolver, it won't do any good. Pagan Publishing is proud to present 5 non-mythos scenarios of supernatural horror and mystery from author John H. Crowe III. Including inside this musty tome, you won't find deep ones or shoggoths or great old ones, but you will find loathsome horrors perpetrated by both the living and the dead. Ghosts, demons, poltergeists, spirits, and the undead are the order of the day. What horror is devouring the locals in the Westerfield incident? What has caused the graves to open in the vengeful dead? Can the investigators save themselves from the bitter venom of the gods? Can they unravel the curse with a screaming skull? Can they bring peace to an unsettled mind? It won't help your investigators if they've read the Malleus Monstrorum or own their own copy of the Call of Cthulhu rulebook. There's nothing in these well-thumbed volumes to help them here. In here, they're on their own. So, Call of Cthulhu is blessed with an awful lot of supplements and anthologies of scenarios. It probably has, outside of Dungeons and Dragons, the most number of supplements, other than any other role-playing game. It's essentially dedicated to scenarios and or campaigns. It has very few key core supplements on its own, which do not contain, which are just sort of like background or support material. Most of the content is for scenarios, but all of those deal with the investigators confronting the forces of the Cthulhu Mythos and cosmic horror. There are far and few scenarios which, for Call of Cthulhu, which are non-mythos scenarios, and Bumps in the Night is an anthology of one of them. So we open up, we have that very typical white on black Pagan Publishing credits page, and inside we've got an introduction and a contents page. This, you look at this and go, yeah, this is a Pagan Publishing book. It, as I say, has its own style, has its own look, which every publisher should have that. But it's in comparison to, say, Chaosium, which put out tens and tens and tens of books for Call of Cthulhu. Those books have their own look, and these are almost in contrast to that look. So we've got the Westerfield incident with its own internal index, or contents page, sorry. And we've got the keeper's information, players' information, how did they get them started, dealing with the investigators and what the investigators know. I certainly have looked at this scenario anthology in the past. I've reviewed it. This copy is going on to my friend Scott in the States, because, like the aforementioned Walk in the Wastes, Pagan Publishing's scenarios had a reputation for being high quality content. And it's the same with this. Even though there's no mythos in here, there's still interesting mysteries to investigate. And say, what you can do this, you can use this to run as one-shots. You can use this to leaven your campaign again, in which the investigators make inquiries about mysteries of the mythos, with mysteries that are not connected. So this involves essentially a series of murders at essentially, I think it's a mining camp in upstate New York. You even have options here for conducting research, questioning the locals, and you've got the actual details of the hard rock mining company with the layout of one of its mining camps. And then into the shaft itself, where of course you've got something hidden, which has been revealed, and comes out to see what's going on with the new creature of Call of Cthulhu, the vampire skeleton. And then at the end we've got a solution, and then a list of sort of like NPCs and sanity rewards and losses. And then got the terrible skeleton, the Owen Dagger. That's the handout for the players. It's a bit plain, but that's fine. And it's got even a nice little bit section there of the credits for the scenario. And then we've got more play aids, and these are much better. They look like newspaper articles, and you've got a calendar. And then Vengeful Dead. And the whole idea of having a zombie uprising is kind of it's a bit of a cliche. It's rarely done in Call of Cthulhu, because you've got greater and more interesting monsters to deal with. They're usually typically minor things in comparison to whatever has mythos, artifact has or spell has caused them to rise. And this news takes place in at Virginia, at Grandview Lodge. They've got plenty of detail, plenty of sort of stuff here to look at. This is essentially, if I remember, is where the player characters investigators will be staying or visiting when there is the outbreak of the undead appearing. And it's a bit more timed, because essentially it's when the player characters arrive, the investigators arrive, and there's this one last peaceful day. And the other thing is notably about the artwork in Pagan Publishing titles is it's not always pleasant. There's a quite disturbing image there. So this is going day by day through the events of the scenario, as the dead arise and attempt to have their revenge. You have paranormal activity as well. Essentially the NPCs and the player characters have to defend against the rise of the undead, and so on. So at the end we have aftermath and sanity rewards and penalties and so on, and the NPCs as before, and then sort of like somebody being grabbed and pulled out of, or essentially somebody sort of being grabbed and trying to be pulled into one of the windows of the lodge as the zombies pull at them outside. We have all the NPC stats. And handouts for the investigators. And essentially the player characters kind of put the sort of like the investigators' first view of the part of the scenario when they arrive, something looking out at them through the shutter. Then with the bitter venom of the gods. And this again is set in Virginia. I'm dealing with the gallery family, and it's actually a sequel to The Vengeful Dead. All the surviving NPCs and sort of like how one to keep in contact, so that took place in 1921. This takes place in 1922. And we've got a gallery family tree, and details of an expedition to Mesopotamia. So you've already got an artifact that that someone has brought back and is going to bring about a calamitous event. So you've got descriptions of the family members, and this is how the investigators get involved with Alicia's plight. And then description of the gallery house. So, I mean, so essentially it's all sort of like a one singular location scenario, and then we encounter with a damsel in distress, and talking about investigator options, and we have an overview of the gallery family grounds, and, if necessary, research on Sumerian mythology. So dealing essentially with a family curse that comes about because of something that one of the NPCs brought back with them from an expedition to the Middle East, and so on. And then at the end we've got sanity rewards and penalties, the details of the NPCs. So quite a large cast to be dealt with, as was in the previous scenario. So these do take a bit of work upon the part of the keeper. Information about diseases that might crop up because of the curse. Then we have and then talking of curses, we have the curse of the screaming skull, and this takes place in 1923 at the leprous house, and involves a skull and a mummy. I'm going to get, this is Vermont, for the Withering Lodge. Descriptions of Vermont in 1923. And Vermont is a good location in general for Lovecraftian investigative horror, because you have its ties to the Migo, with the Watcher in the Woods, that sort of thing. We've got a map of the floor plans of the lodge and the grounds. And nice to be a bit of a drop, sort of like a drop a different kind of horror into New England. And there's plenty of sort of like New England is settled long enough that it has its own legends and horrors to contend with. So we've got floor plans of the house and the grounds, followed by interior details, including several sort of like standing stones or stelae. A tinglet. There's a so we've got a men here, there, and then a tinglet totem pole. Continued descriptions of the house, and then giving up the ghost, finding what is unsettling the house. And we have lots and lots of different artifacts for the investigators to examine and determine which one is the cause. And that's kind of a classic kind of setup. The family, someone in the family's been on an expedition elsewhere, brought back something that shouldn't, lost in the house, and you've got to try and find it. Or there's books that a family member wants to sell, and you've got to go in. And there's an interesting scenario in the pages of the Pagan Publishing magazine, Unspeakable Oath, where they have to essentially catalogue the house whilst it's being haunted by someone who thinks they're stealing the books. So we get to discoveries and resolution, dealing with the threat from the artifact at the end, before we have rewards and sands and NPCs. And the last, then we have handouts, including a really nice auction listing. And then we slip from to another location, an unsettled mind. And then we've got like the Row Streets. I believe this is set in Baltimore. So you've got the classic kind of row streets, row houses, I should say, of Baltimore. You know, that I kind of remember from the beginning of one of my favourite television series, Homicide: Life on the Street. So we've got a strange accident site here. Let's see if I've got a better image of that. No, I haven't. Again, so we've got a classic kind of 1920s police officer and then a flattened vehicle. What could have caused that? So we've got automobile, death investigation and the victims, and then the very straight and kind of narrow square city blocks of Baltimore. And another victim. Checking police records and the bike beat officer and autopsies. As I recall, this one kind of has a bit of an X-Files kind of feel to it. So it's set in the 1920s, but easily could be slipped forward into the modern day. Run according to your, you know, you could run it using Delta Green without any difficulty. So here we go with the ending, rewards and sanity components, NPCs, and so on. And then we end, of course, where we have bibliography for the anthology, and almost as is de rigueur, we have a character sheet, an investigator sheet there if you know you want alternative. Nice and clear and simple. I mean, this is would have been for Call of Cthulhu 6th edition, so you know not as quite as busy or as necessarily, I say, complex as 7th edition. Anyway, and then we come to the end of Bumps in the Night, an anthology of scenarios for Call of Cthulhu. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you have, then please do click on the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to more unboxings in the Nook, where you'll see me out here with a package containing a book or game, in this case a supplement, which I'll unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice cup of tea, then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks for watching another unboxing in the Nook. We'll be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.